All the elements will be in full effect this Sunday in Buffalo. Wind, frigid temperatures.
Pro, you do not get matchups like this. You do not deserve a matchup like this.
On their quest for their first Super Bowl, Lamar.
The 2024 season saw two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL put up two of the best individual seasons that we've seen this decade, as Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson were going blow for blow in a tight MVP race, and it all came to a head in the divisional round of the playoffs. On Sunday, we saw the most anticipated game in years and arguably the most important game of both of these guys' careers go down, and the hype was more than justified. People were more excited for this game than they have been for any Super Bowl over the past couple of years. But why? Well, the simple answer is that coming into it, it was one of the most unpredictable playoff games in NFL history. So before we get to the content, guys, make sure you have your notifications on. We are really ramping things up for the NFL playoffs, the NFL draft, NFL free agency, and the latest NFL head coaching rumors. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! I've been abusing this tactic constantly to make so much money. It happened with Tyreek Hill, it happened with Patrick Mahomes, and now we're getting another free square from PrizePicks. All Will Howard needs is one passing yard in order for a square to hit, and recently I've been on a crazy hot streak, including this 2-leg to make me $90, this 4-leg to make me $320, and another 2-leg to make me $90. If you haven't signed up for PrizePicks, use my promo code Mikerophone to get $50 when you make a play of $5, and I'm gonna give you my play with the free square for free on my Instagram at @TheFlightMike or on Snapchat FlightMikeSnap. And thank you PrizePicks for the sponsor.
First half, I had two costly turnovers. Me not holding the safety, me just knowing the coverage, me knowing it was man, threw a BS interception. It was 7-7 at the time. I believe they scored after that. Battle back, fumble, snap, trying to make something happen. Couldn't throw. It was like a RPO play, so I couldn't really throw the ball to likely, the offensive line was down the field. So I was trying to make something happen, tried to squeeze the ball, it slipped out my hand. Von Miller picked it up, got some yards. I think that led to points for them. So it's a team effort out there. He been busting his behind, he making plays happen out there on that field for us. Came up short. And like I've been saying all season, every time we in situations like this, turnovers play a factor. Penalties play a factor. Tonight, with the turnovers, you can't have that shit. And that's why we lost the game, because as you can see, we're moving the ball wonderfully. It's hold on to the fucking ball. I'm sorry for my language, but this shit annoying. I'm tired of this shit, man.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Going into the game, absolutely nobody could come to a clear decision as to who they thought would win. Even ESPN had the odds as close to 50-50 as humanly possible. Both teams finished the season as two of the hottest teams in all of football, and both offenses were completely unstoppable under their MVP candidate quarterbacks for the last 6 or 7 weeks. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens' brand new Hall of Fame running back Derrick Henry boasted one of the most dominant rushing attacks of all time, with Lamar also having one of the most efficient seasons in NFL history as a passer. I can't believe there was once a time where general managers suggested Lamar Jackson switching to running back. Meanwhile, on the other side, Josh Allen has been making Superman-like plays like this all season, all while leading his Buffalo Bills to a 13-4 record. The offensive talent that the media was saying would prevent Buffalo from even making the playoffs before the season even started.
Then they gotta go and face the Lions, who are on a mini bye themselves.
It's safe to say that Buffalo exceeded all expectations on the back of their superstar quarterback, but their defense was no slouch either. In fact, Buffalo Bills and Baltimore Ravens had very similar defenses throughout the regular season on paper, but had very different ways of getting there. All year long, Buffalo had a very up and down defense. They would give up a bunch of points to teams like the Rams and Lions, and then would go and completely shut down their putrid division rivals. Despite the injuries they dealt with all year, they especially missed their all-pro linebacker Matt Milano, who missed the first 13 games of the season. But ultimately, Buffalo played good enough defense overall to give Josh Allen a chance, which is all that they needed despite the Bills' offense getting much worse on paper. The result? Well, they won 13 games. Meanwhile, Baltimore was at near or the top of the league in rushing defense all season long. But when it came down to their pass defense, they were the worst in all of football. Their secondary was the reason that they started with an 0-2 record, giving Ravens fans little little hope for January football. But all of that flipped when defensive coordinator Zach Orr made some major changes at the third level midway through the season. Veteran safeties Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson had become completely unplayable. So Orr decided to move former nickel corner Ardarius Washington to starting free safety and move all-world safety Kyle Hamilton to a permanent deep safety position, as he would often be placed either in the box or on the line of scrimmage with William and Jackson behind him. These small changes completely fixed the Baltimore Ravens pass defense, and Baltimore would finish the regular season with arguably the #1 defense in all of football over the final 6 weeks, the perfect time to get hot going into the playoffs. Both defenses showed just how good they were in the wild card round, with the Ravens only allowing 14 points to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills having an even more impressive performance, allowing only 7 points to a red-hot Broncos offense. However, when these two teams met early in the season, Baltimore was the better team by a significant margin.
But tonight's one of those nights where everything went well. Derrick Henry, big 87-yard run to start it, and just gashing Buffalo.
So in week 4, Baltimore blew out Buffalo 35-10 in a matchup that saw the Ravens expose every issue the Bills had. Just take a look at some of this film and you'll see what I mean. On the Ravens' first offensive snap of the game, we would see Derrick Henry rush for an 87-yard touchdown completely untouched. Now, why was this so easy? Well, for starters, Buffalo lined up with 5 DBs on the field, and Baltimore happened to be in a 12 formation, with 300-pound first-team All-Pro fullback Pat Ricard basically acting as a 6th offensive lineman, which is automatically a recipe for a big gain. But the reason that Henry was able to break this loose is because of the blocking. Here you'll see the Ravens blockers all fold, confusing the Bills defense and giving a pulling Ricard an easy block on the free rusher. Once Derrick Henry runs past that block, all he has to do is find a hole perfectly formed by Mark Andrews on Taylor Rapp, which gives Henry a free lane to the end zone, and of course he wins the foot race. Buffalo had the same exact problem in the third quarter. The Bills would once again come out in a nickel package despite the play being on their own 9-yard line. And of course, the Ravens would come out in 12 personnel. Buffalo was just getting completely outmatched and outcoached in that game. Lamar would keep on a read option, and the first problem is that 2 linebackers bit on the fake, taking a step toward Justice Hill and leaving the right side of the field wide open due to Baltimore's tight ends being matched up one-on-one with defensive backs. Baltimore used this dominant style of offense to completely take over the game earlier on in the regular season, not leaving Josh Allen with any chance to top them. But going into this divisional showdown, none of that mattered. Both teams have completely changed since then. Buffalo's defense has improved, and most importantly, they had film from that game to fix their wrongdoing. Everything factored left this game completely unpredictable. However, the main story behind this super matchup was the narrative surrounding the two opposing quarterbacks. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson both had so much to prove coming into this game, and there's a good reason why.
Lamar looks tight, he looks anxious, he admits it, and you're left scratching your head.
The narrative surrounding both quarterbacks coming into this was that they were the 2 best players in the regular season, but who would be the one to get it done in January? I mean, the guys were setting records left and right this year. Lamar Jackson had 5,000 total yards, 45 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions, while throwing for the 4th highest single season passer rating in NFL history. He also broke Michael Vick's record for the most career rushing yards by a quarterback in NFL history. This was an absolutely historic season for Lamar, but it was for Josh too. Josh Allen had a legendary year, having 4,200 total yards, 40 total touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, and he married Haley Stenfeld. Yes, you can make an argument that his numbers are worse than Lamar's, but the weapons that Josh had all around him all season long were nothing compared to what Baltimore had. Allen lost Stephon Diggs in the offseason, and everyone said he would regress. He was without Amari Cooper for half the season, and Dalton Kincaid didn't break out as much as people thought he would. The only person on the Bills offense other than Allen who looked elite was James Cook, and even he has nothing on who the Ravens have in their backfield. The debate over who deserves the MVP award has been a heated one between Baltimore and Buffalo fans, and it's been the closest MVP race we've seen in a very, very long time. Coming into this game, I thought Lamar Jackson had it already won, though because of the simple fact that he was named first team All-Pro over Josh Allen, and the voters for the All-Pro teams and for all of the awards like MVP and Rookie of the Year are the same voters. But I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen becomes the first quarterback since 2003 to win MVP as a second team All-Pro, and even then, it was a co-MVP. But ultimately, none of this matters. The regular season awards, the MVPs, the All-Pros, ultimately, none of this matters in the playoffs. And the narrative around both quarterbacks is that who can win when it counts. Neither man has made it to a Super Bowl yet in their careers. The Bills and the Ravens are actually the two teams with the most wins since 2018 without a Super Bowl appearance, which makes sense considering that Patrick Mahomes is in the AFC. But for some reason, the fans and especially the media expect them to. Lamar Jackson has this narrative around him more than Josh Allen does, but that's only because Josh has performed well in the playoffs. Despite his 2, maybe 3 MVPs, Lamar Jackson has notoriously played worse in the playoffs, costing his team wins and making people believe that he's a choke artist. Unfortunately, despite how either man performs in the playoffs for the rest of their careers, they'll always have this narrative around them unless they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City is the standard, and according to the media, you're a choker if you can't beat the Chiefs, even though the only team that's figured out how to do that over the last half decade is the Joe Burrow-led Bengals. Now, we'll see how that narrative can change this year in the AFC Championship, but as of right now, both men had a huge hump to conquer.
Even I picked the Bills, and you could see it in my face when I was doing it. Am I really going to choose against the defending Super Bowl champions right now? And I did, and I was wrong.
Regardless of how this game went, there's no denying that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are both generational talents, and they will be MVP candidates for years to come, and will be linked to the hip for the rest of their careers. They were drafted in the same year, their first ever game was played against each other, and I'm sure there will be plenty more playoff matchups between the two over the next decade. But as for the one we saw on Sunday, the first drive of the game was pretty much the exact opposite of what I thought would happen in this game, as Buffalo had no trouble stopping Derrick Henry when he touched the ball. The problem was that they let Lamar Jackson work as a passer, and he drove down the field with ease to give Baltimore the early lead. Buffalo would then answer the only way they knew how, on the backs of Josh Allen and James Cook. One wild throw from Josh Allen to Khalil Shakir and a 4th down conversion is all they needed to give them enough momentum to run the ball in to tie the game up. It was then the Baltimore Ravens' turn to answer, but unfortunately, that wouldn't happen at all. On just the second play of their second drive, Lamar Jackson would throw a costly pick to Taylor Rapp on what looked like a miscommunication between him and his temporary wide receiver 1, Rashad Bateman. Bear in mind, Zay Flowers is not playing in this game, but the ball shouldn't have been thrown in the first place. That kind of mistake certainly can't happen in the playoffs, and if the Detroit Lions game versus the Washington Commanders was any indication, you cannot turn the ball over multiple times and expect to win meaningful football games. Now, Lamar's defense helped him get the ball back without any damage being done, but it wouldn't matter, as Lamar Jackson would once again shoot himself in the foot, this time in a crucial situation near the red zone, as he would fumble the ball after Baltimore was driving down the field. A complete momentum swing, and that momentum would lead Josh Allen to an easy drive on a short field, and he would run the ball in with a tush push, as we've seen a million times this season, to take a 14-7 lead. The difference in the game up to this point is the fact that Lamar Jackson was making mistakes that he hasn't made all year, but the narrative surrounding Lamar Jackson seemed to be proving true once again. It looked like, at least early in this game, he was choking yet another meaningful playoff game. You can't let opportunities against a team like Buffalo go to waste, but fortunately, Lamar Jackson would lock back in and get the Baltimore Ravens all the way down to the 1-yard line on their next drive. But Buffalo's defense would come up with a huge goal line stand to hold Baltimore to just 3 points and hold the lead, which was surprising considering that Baltimore led the league in red zone touchdown percentage this year by a wide margin. It looked like Baltimore was going to hold Buffalo to 3, yet a crucial but questionable pass interference call on 3rd down would give Buffalo a 1st and goal. And of course, once you give Josh Allen that much real estate to the end zone, he's typically going to convert. Josh Allen would rush for another touchdown, which would give Buffalo a 21-10 lead going into halftime, with the chance to go up 28-10 to start the second half without Lamar Jackson even touching the football. And you best believe that Buffalo fans let us know how they felt.
It's the corner right there. And that's why you hear the MVP chants right now.
Fortunately for the Baltimore Ravens, their defense would step up, and the Buffalo Bills would fail to capitalize on the momentum that they ended the first half with, going 3 and out on the first drive of the second half and giving Lamar Jackson an opportunity for redemption. Buffalo would hold the Ravens to 3 points after that drive, but giving up points without scoring first this half was certainly a killer for the home team. At this point, it was once again a one-possession game, and a stop on Josh Allen's next drive would be absolutely absolutely massive, and a huge stop is exactly what they get thanks to a huge third down stop by Kyle Van Noy. Buffalo would run 3 screen passes that drive, with all of them getting blown up. Baltimore's defense flipped a switch at the half, and it seemed like their offense did too, as Baltimore would easily drive down the field on the back of their historic rushing attack, the same rushing attack that destroyed Buffalo in week 4, which finally showed up 2.5 quarters after it should have in this one. However, they would fail to convert on the 2-point conversion, and Buffalo would still hold a lead after 2 straight Ravens scoring drives. They'd end up extending the lead on the back of a 51-yard Tyler Bass field goal, but it truly felt like momentum was on Baltimore's side. Their defense was stepping up, and the rushing attack that they're so known for had finally been put into action. Somehow, after the way the first half went, a touchdown would give Baltimore the lead. Well, instead of a touchdown, the worst possible thing that could have happened to the Baltimore Ravens would end up happening. Lamar Jackson would find Mark Andrews wide open for a 15-yard reception, a first down, but Terrell Bernard, one of the linebackers Buffalo missed in week 4, would punch the ball out and recover his own fumble, giving Buffalo all the momentum and good field position to try to put this game out of reach. Andrews tried to get fancy, and unfortunately, it came back to bite him. Josh Allen would then lead a drive that took a bunch of time off of the clock, but would ultimately get stuffed at the goal line, forcing them to settle for 3 and leaving it at a 1-possession game. Buffalo was up by 8, and Lamar Jackson had 88 yards to go with under 4 minutes left in the game. Lamar Jackson needed to drive the ball all the way down the field in order to force overtime. In a legacy-defining game, pitting 2 MVPs against each other for an opportunity to face the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship, it was time to see what Lamar Jackson was made of. To Lamar Jackson's credit, he would lead a beautiful drive down the field, topping it off with a huge touchdown throw to Isaiah Likely to give the Baltimore Ravens an opportunity to tie the game. But the most heartbreaking play of Baltimore's season would be right here, and it's very fitting because the Baltimore Ravens season started with heartbreak, with Isaiah Likely having 1 foot out of bounds in week 1 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. This time the lack of conversion had way higher stakes and would contribute to the Ravens' downfall. Mark Andrews was wide open in the end zone for a 2-point conversion, a man that has established a reputation as one of the best tight ends in the entire NFL. He would get wide open in the end zone and end up dropping the ball, forcing the Baltimore Ravens to need to kick an onside kick to stay alive, but we know how that typically goes. Buffalo would get the ball back with 1.5 minutes left, and Josh Allen's offense would run the clock out to send the Buffalo Bills to the AFC Championship. Buffalo would go on to win this star-studded matchup, and once again, the legacy of Lamar Jackson would not grow. But in this particular instance, I have to admit, it wasn't his fault. Lamar Jackson did what he needed to do. It was the team that fell just short, and ultimately, the Baltimore Ravens would beat themselves. The team as a whole made way too many mistakes and had too many turnovers. Josh Allen didn't even have all that great of a game on paper, but it was enough to win because the Ravens were helping him by shooting themselves in the foot. It's truly heartbreaking because with the moves that the Ravens made in the offseason, the addition of Derrick Henry, his prolific season, and the multi-dimensional offense they built, the Baltimore Ravens could have potentially made a run this year. But the problem with the AFC is in order to make it to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to go through Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and typically Joe Burrow, but obviously not this year, in order to have a chance to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. The competition is so fierce in the AFC, and you cannot make mistakes. And in a very snowy game in the AFC divisional round versus the Buffalo Bills, unfortunately, the Ravens couldn't do that. Regardless of the outcome, this game ended up being an absolute classic between 2 of the best QBs in the league, and I'm pretty confident that they're going to see each other in this situation once again. If you're a Ravens fan, let me know what you guys think about the outcome in the comment section down below. Aside from that, if you've been living under a rock, the Detroit Lions choked the biggest game of their entire season. We have a full in-depth analysis on that. We uploaded it earlier today. You may have missed it because you were busy watching the AFC divisional games. I'll leave it in the end screen and I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.